I hadn't planned on staying the whole weekend at Ryan's place. It just sort of happened. One late-night video game session turned into 2, then 3. His mom had moved out years ago, so it was just the two of us, raiding the fridge and arguing over controller settings. By Sunday morning, the house was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner and the occasional bark of the neighbor's dog. Ryan was already gone, off to some preseason football camp 3 towns over. He left at sunrise, tossing me a casual, "Catch you later, man," before slamming the door behind him. I'd booked a bus back to my apartment, but a message from the transit app flashed across my screen just before breakfast. Route canceled due to mechanical issues. Sorry for the inconvenience. Inconvenience. That's one way to put it. I sat on the front porch with my duffel bag, wondering if I should call an Uber I couldn't really afford. I was scrolling through the app, checking prices, when the front door creaked open behind me. "You stranded?" came a voice, low, calm, familiar. I looked up and there he was, Mr. Carter, Ryan's dad, still in his sleep clothes, gray t-shirt, sweatpants, barefoot on the porch. He had a coffee mug in one hand, a set of keys in the other. "Bus canceled," I said, trying to sound casual. He nodded, squinting into the sun. "I'm heading out for a supply run anyway. I'll take you." I blinked. "You sure? I mean, I don't want to." He was already walking to the driveway. "Grab your stuff." There wasn't really a polite way to say no. And truthfully, I wasn't in a hurry to sit at the station for hours, hoping another bus magically appeared. Still, I hesitated. Mr. Carter was different. Not mean, just hard to read. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Tall, always straight-backed. His voice steady like someone who never needed to raise it to be heard. The kind of guy who fixed things with his hands and expected silence while doing it. Also, and I'll admit this only to myself, he was stupidly handsome for someone's dad. I slid into the passenger seat of his truck, my duffel bag tucked at my feet. He started the engine with a smooth turn of the key. The radio was already tuned to something low and instrumental. Some bluesy guitar track that filled the silence without trying too hard. The drive started quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The awkward kind. Like we both knew the situation was unexpected and didn't quite know what to do with it. "Everything okay at school?" he asked finally, eyes on the road. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Classes are good. Finals were rough, but I got through 'em." "Good." He nodded once. No follow-up. We passed the gas station on the edge of town. Then the diner. Then the intersection where the road split, left toward the highway, right toward the lake. I expected him to head left, toward my place. But he didn't. He kept driving straight. I didn't say anything yet. Just glanced sideways at his face. Calm. Focused. Hands at 10 and 2. I couldn't tell if this was normal, or if he had something else in mind. I shifted in my seat. The leather creaked. "Thanks again for the ride," I said, just to fill the air. He nodded again. "No problem." Another long stretch of silence. I looked out the window. Trees blurred past, a few houses tucked behind them. I caught a glimpse of myself in the side mirror. Messy hair, hoodie wrinkled from sleeping in it, eyes a little too alert for someone who claimed to be relaxed. Truth was, I never quite knew how to be around him. With Ryan, everything was jokes and half-baked plans. But with Mr. Carter, it was like the rules changed. He didn't fake small talk or pretend to be interested in things just to be polite. He watched, listened, only spoke when he had something to say. That kind of energy pulled something out of me. Made me want to sit straighter, speak clearer, be noticed. He reached down and turned the air conditioning down a notch. His arm brushed mine, just barely, and I froze, wondering if he noticed. If he did, he didn't say anything. "So," he said finally, voice quieter than before, "you and Ryan still tight?" "Yeah," I said. "He's like a brother." He nodded. "He said you helped him out a lot last semester. Kept him from failing trig." I smiled faintly. "He helped me in chem. We're even." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Barely there, but it felt like some kind of win. I held onto it a second too long. The truck curved around a bend, and I realized something. We weren't heading toward the highway. I glanced down at my phone's GPS, then up at the thickening trees. I sat up straighter. Hey, I think we missed the turn, I said. Mr. Carter didn't look at me, just kept driving. Yeah, I know. My stomach did a little flip. He added calmly, thought I'd make a quick stop first. Won't take long. We drove in silence for another few miles, the hum of the engine blending with the quiet strum of the radio. I kept my eyes on the road signs, growing increasingly uneasy as familiar markers disappeared behind us. We'd long passed the exit that would have taken us straight into town, straight to my apartment. Now the road narrowed, the landscape shifting into long stretches of pine trees and winding curves. Cleared my throat. Hey! This isn't the way to my place. Mr. Carter didn't flinch. His eyes remained on the road. I know, he said, calm as ever. Just a short detour. I stared at him. Detour? He glanced at me, not quite a smile but something close to it. Thought you'd like a view. I need to stop by the Lakehouse anyway. Won't take long. I sat back slowly. The Lakehouse. I'd heard Ryan mention it once or twice. Someplace the family used to go when he was younger before his parents split. He said his dad still kept it up, used it mostly to get away for weekends when work got too loud. I never thought much about it until now. Oh, okay, I said, forcing my voice to sound light. Cool. But my shoulders were stiff, my fingers curling slightly around the edge of my seat. Something about this felt different. Not dangerous exactly, just unpredictable. We drove deeper into the woods, the sunlight slipping between the branches in long golden ribbons. The road was older here, with cracks spidering across the pavement and soft dirt edges that looked like they might crumble if you got too close. I stole a few glances at Mr. Carter while he drove. His profile was sharp against the light square jaw, faint stubble, hands steady on the wheel. I wondered what he was thinking, if this little stop meant anything, or if I was reading too much into everything. Maybe I was. Still, I couldn't shake the nervous flutter in my chest. Do you come out here often? I asked just to fill the space. Not as much as I used to, he said. These days, mostly when I need quiet. I nodded even though he wasn't looking. He didn't strike me as someone who liked noise to begin with. A few more minutes passed, the truck climbing a narrow incline. The trees opened up suddenly, and there it was, a wide, still lake, framed by tall grass and smooth rocks, the surface catching the sun like glass. Off to the right, a modest wood cabin nestled between two tall oaks, looking aged but solid, like it had been waiting patiently all this time. Mr. Carter turned off the engine and the truck came to a quiet stop in the gravel lot beside the cabin. The silence was immediate and complete. No cars, no voices, just the rustle of leaves and the call of some bird off in the distance. He got out, and I followed, my sneakers crunching on the gravel. You can stretch your legs if you want, he said, heading toward the porch. I've just got to check the water and flip the breakers. I nodded and walked toward the dock instead, needing something to do with myself. The wood was sun-bleached and slightly soft under my shoes. I walked out to the edge and sat, legs dangling over the water. The lake was eerily calm, still, like it had secrets. I could hear Mr. Carter moving around inside the cabin. Doors creaking open, a dull thud or two, then quiet again. I tried not to let my thoughts spiral. Tried not to overanalyze why we were really here. Was this normal? Did he bring other people out here? Had Ryan ever mentioned it? Did Mr. Carter ever bring guys here? That last thought made my stomach do something strange, like my insides were rearranging. I pulled my hoodie tighter around me, suddenly aware of the way the breeze licked at the back of my neck. A few minutes later, he emerged with 2 cans of soda and walked slowly down to the dock. He handed me one without a word and sat down beside me, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched. I took a sip, the carbonation sharp in my throat. We stared out at the water. You like it? He asked. I nodded. It's beautiful. It was my dad's, he said. Used to fish off this dock. I didn't care much about fishing, but I liked watching him. He didn't say much either. I smiled faintly. So it runs in the family. He chuckled, low, almost reluctant. Maybe. We lapsed into silence again. But this time it wasn't uncomfortable. Just quiet. Peaceful. I risked a glance at him. He looked softer here. Less guarded. His features more relaxed than I'd ever seen them at home. The lines at the corners of his eyes didn't seem so stern in the daylight. There was a kind of sadness in him, but it wasn't overwhelming. Just quiet. I didn't mean to throw off your day, I said, after a while. You didn't have to bring me all the way out here. His eyes stayed on the lake. You didn't throw anything off. I came because I wanted to. That sentence landed in my chest like a stone. He wanted to. I looked away quickly, heart thudding. I didn't know what was happening, or where this was going. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a detour. This was something else. The longer I sat on the dock, the less I wanted to leave. There was something about the lake, something still and sacred. It didn't sparkle like the ones you see in travel brochures. It just existed, quietly, like it didn't need anyone to admire it. Trees rimmed the shore, leaning slightly over the water like they were listening. The wind moved slow, deliberate, as if careful not to disturb whatever had settled there. Behind me, I heard the cabin door creak again. Mr. Carter stepped out, a can of orange soda in each hand. I didn't know what you liked, he said, offering one to me. This is fine, I said, taking it with a smile. Thanks. He sat beside me on the dock, a little closer this time. His legs stretched out in front of him, boots half dangling over the edge. The wood creaked beneath us, warm from the sun. For a moment we just sipped in silence. The soda hissed softly every time I tilted it to my lips. I was hyper-aware of everything, of him beside me, of the way the breeze moved his hair, of the slow rise and fall of his chest. I didn't look directly at him, not at first, but I could feel him there, solid, quiet, present. This place is beautiful, I said, voice low. He nodded. It's been in my family since I was a kid. My dad built the dock himself. Used to come out here with a radio and a cooler and sit for hours. Did you ever fish with him? I asked. A few times. He smiled slightly. I was more interested in building things than catching them. But he taught me patience. I glanced at him. You seem like someone who has a lot of that. He chuckled softly. More now than I used to. Life teaches you, whether you want it to or not. I let that sit in the air for a second, then asked, Do you come out here a lot? He paused before answering. Less lately, but yeah, when I need space. Or quiet. That word again, quiet. He didn't mean noise. He meant something deeper. I looked at him now, really looked. There was a tiredness behind his eyes. Not exhaustion, more like wear. Like a book whose pages had been turned too many times. His hands, resting on his knees, looked strong but still, like they could build a house or hold a secret. You ever bring Ryan here? I asked. Used to, he said, watching the water. When he was younger, before things got messy. I nodded slowly. The divorce. Yeah, he said. That changed a lot. He didn't explain further, and I didn't push. I could feel the shift in his energy, subtle but real. The tension that lived just beneath the calm. It was like watching someone who held everything together so tightly, but had no one to hand it off to. I said quietly, It's nice out here. Peaceful. He turned to me, and for a second his eyes softened. That's why I like it, he said. Out here, no one expects anything from me. I swallowed. Do people usually expect a lot? He didn't answer right away. Then, enough that I stopped expecting anything in return. That hit something inside me I wasn't ready for. I looked away, focused on the ripples in the water. My reflection stared back at me, blurry and uncertain. You know, I said, you always seemed so put together, like you had everything figured out. He gave a short breath of a laugh. That's the trick. If you act like you do, people stop asking if you don't. Silence again. But it wasn't cold. Felt shared. Like we were sitting in something we both understood, even if we didn't have words for it. I'm sorry, I said suddenly. He raised an eyebrow. For what? For assuming you were just, I don't know, Ryan's dad. The serious guy who fixes things and doesn't talk much. He smiled faintly. Well, I am that guy. Yeah, I said. But you're also more. His eyes held mine for a beat longer than expected. Long enough that I had to look away. I felt something shift between us then. Not dramatic, not obvious, but real. A string pulled a little tighter. A silence that said more than conversation could. I sipped my soda again, mostly for something to do. You ever feel like you're just floating between things? I asked, unsure why I was admitting this now. Like you don't really belong anywhere, but you're too afraid to drift too far either? He didn't respond immediately. Then he said softly, every day. I looked at him. His face wasn't guarded anymore. It was open, and a little sad. And for the first time I realized he wasn't just lonely. He was waiting. The light shifted as the afternoon deepened. The lake, once golden, now reflected a softer blue-gray, like it was holding its breath. Mr. Carter and I sat side by side on the dock, our sodas half finished, condensation trailing down the cans and into the cracks of the wood. He hadn't said much for a while, and I didn't mind. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was something we shared now, like a worn blanket passed between us. But then, his voice broke through it, low and measured. Are you close with your dad? I blinked. Of all the things I thought he might ask that hadn't even made the list, I kept my eyes on the lake. Not really. A pause. Then I added, he left when I was 12. Mr. Carter didn't say anything, and I didn't rush to fill the space. I'd told the story before, to teachers, to therapists, to Ryan once after too many drinks. But it always came out sounding distant, like I was reciting a fact instead of remembering a life. He said he was going to the store, I finally said, voice steady. Never came back. Still nothing from Mr. Carter. Just the sound of the water brushing gently against the dock. I think I waited by the window every day for 2 weeks, I added, more to myself than him. Like maybe he'd walk up the driveway and act like nothing happened. But he didn't. I glanced over at him then. He was watching me. Not with pity, but something quieter. Like he understood exactly what I wasn't saying. That's rough, he said after a while. No kid deserves that. I guess not, I replied. But it kind of shaped me, you know? I got used to figuring things out on my own. He nodded like he knew that feeling too well. And then, without thinking, I said it. I've always looked up to people like you. It just came out. No warning. No plan. He turned toward me slowly, his brow slightly furrowed. People like me? Yeah, I said, my throat dry. Guys who seem solid. Reliable. The ones who show up. Fix things. Say what they mean. Mr. Carter looked down at his hands for a moment, like the compliment had landed somewhere uncomfortable. Then he said, quietly, people don't always live up to what they look like. There was something in his voice. A crack that hadn't been there before. I didn't press. I just waited. He took a slow breath. When Ryan was younger, I thought I could hold everything together. That if I worked hard enough, stayed strong enough, I could keep the family from falling apart. But some things you can't fix with effort. Or even love. There was a kind of grief in the way he said it. Not dramatic. Just settled. Like someone who'd been carrying the weight for years and stopped expecting it to get lighter. I'm sorry, I said softly. He gave a small shrug. It is what it is. Another breeze moved across the lake, lifting the edge of my hoodie. I pulled it tighter around me, but the chill wasn't from the air. It came from the space between his words, the things he wasn't saying. I looked at him again, really looked, and I started noticing things I hadn't let myself see before. The way his eyes flickered to me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his shoulder leaned just slightly toward mine, never away. The space between us, getting smaller without either of us moving. I suddenly became aware of everything, the quiet tension humming underneath the calm, the unspoken weight in the way he sat beside me, the way my body was reacting to it all. I cleared my throat, trying to steady myself. Did it change? After the divorce. His voice was rougher now. Everything changed. The house felt too big. Ryan pulled away. I tried dating for a while, but it always felt like pretending. Pretending? He hesitated. Then, with a bitter smile, pretending to be the man they thought I was. Straight, settled, safe. My heart skipped. He said it so plainly, like he hadn't even meant to. I turned toward him fully now. He didn't look back at me, but he didn't look away either. Just stared at the lake, his jaw tight. I wanted to ask something, wanted to say me too, or I get it, or even just thank you. But the words tangled somewhere behind my teeth. So instead, I just sat there. And he let me. Eventually, he glanced at me again. Not the quick, casual kind of look, but the slow, deliberate kind. The kind that lingers. Our eyes met. There was no smile, no invitation, no pressure. Just recognition. I didn't know what would happen next, if anything. But I knew this, I wasn't imagining it. Something was unfolding between us. Not fast, not loud, but real, and impossible to ignore. The light had changed again. That soft, late afternoon glow had settled across the lake like a thin layer of gold. Everything felt quiet. Not just the kind of quiet you hear, but the kind that seeps into your body. The kind that makes you aware of your heartbeat, of the way you're sitting, of how close someone else is to you. I watched the sun move lower through the trees, then glanced sideways at Mr. Carter. His face was unreadable again, calm, distant, but I could feel the air between us shifting. The silence wasn't the same anymore. It didn't stretch with emptiness. It stretched with meaning. Cleared my throat. Do you still talk to Ryan's mom? His gaze stayed on the water. Not much. We've been divorced for almost 8 years now. I hesitated. Do you mind if I ask what happened? He gave a long sigh. We weren't a good match. She wanted a version of me I couldn't fully be, and I kept trying to fit into it, thinking that was the right thing to do. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. In the end, he said, I think we both just got tired of pretending. That word again, pretending, carried so much weight coming from him. Ryan doesn't talk about it much, I offered. He was angry, Mr. Carter said. Still is, in some ways. I think he blamed me for the distance, for not being what he needed me to be. There was a pause. Truth is, he added, I wasn't even what I needed me to be. That line sat with me like a stone dropped in water. The ripples of it kept spreading. I wanted to reach out and say something. I wanted to ask what he meant exactly, but I already knew. Not from the words, but from the silence around them. You said earlier, I began slowly, that it's been a long time since you let anyone in. He nodded, his mouth pulling into a crooked line. Yeah. Why me? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Why bring me here? He turned toward me then, really turned. His eyes met mine, steady but soft. Because you see things, he said. I frowned. What do you mean? You don't fill silence with noise. You ask questions that matter. And you don't pretend to know everything. He paused. And maybe I just wanted to feel seen again, even if it's just for a little while. I looked down, suddenly aware of how still I'd become. And then it happened, subtle but electric. Our arms brushed, just the barest touch of skin against skin, where his forearm met mine. But it sparked something in me, sharp and tender all at once. I didn't move away, neither did he. That moment hung there, thick, unspoken, undeniably charged. My breath felt heavier. The sound of it seemed too loud in my own ears. I could hear his too, slower, controlled. I didn't dare look at him again. Not yet. But I knew. I knew something had changed. Something had passed between us that wasn't just about words or glances. It was about the space we'd stopped keeping between us. The invisible line that had quietly vanished. He shifted slightly, his shoulder brushing mine again, more deliberately this time. Still, I didn't move. The wind picked up, stirring the surface of the lake into soft ripples. Somewhere far off, a bird called out and was answered. He exhaled slowly beside me, then said almost reluctantly, I should drive you home. My heart twisted. I nodded once. Yeah, okay. But I didn't move. Neither did he. We just sat there a few moments longer, shoulders nearly touching, breathing the same air. Neither of us looked at the time. The ride back felt longer than the ride out, even though I knew it wasn't. Mr. Carter hadn't said a word since we left the Lakehouse. The soda cans clinked faintly in the cup holders with every bump in the road. Outside the window, the sun was beginning to dip lower into the horizon, casting long shadows across the trees. Inside the truck, the silence was no longer peaceful. It was heavy. I kept my hands folded in my lap, unsure what to do with them. My bag was tucked beneath my feet, my chest tight with all the words I wasn't saying. I could feel him next to me, solid, controlled, but something in him had shifted. His grip on the steering wheel looked firmer, his jaw tenser than before. I wondered if he was replaying that moment on the dock the way I was. The brush of our arms, the long, lingering glances, the silence we let stretch without filling it. The way neither of us moved when we said it was time to leave. I wanted to say something, anything, but I was afraid the wrong word would break it, whatever it was. Finally, his voice cut through the quiet. "You're not a kid anymore, Jesse." I turned toward him. He didn't look at me, just kept his eyes locked on the road. I swallowed. "You don't look at me like I am." He exhaled through his nose. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. Another mile passed before he slowed the truck and pulled over near a scenic overlook. It wasn't planned. I could tell by the quick glance he gave the rearview mirror, like he needed to get off the road right now. The tires crunched onto gravel and then we stopped. No one else was around. Just us, the quiet press of twilight, and a soft wind blowing through the trees. I stared out the windshield, pretending not to notice how still he'd gone beside me. But then I felt it, the weight of his eyes. I turned, slowly. He was watching me, not casually, not politely, searching. His expression was tight with conflict. His brows drawn in. His lips parted slightly like he was about to say something but hadn't decided what yet. It wasn't the look of someone confused. It was the look of someone deciding. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just let him look. And for once, I didn't feel small under someone's gaze. I didn't feel like a kid or a guest or Ryan's friend. I felt seen, fully, like every word I hadn't said, every thought I hadn't shared, was visible in my eyes, and he was reading it all carefully. His hand shifted on the gear shift. Then slowly, so slowly, he leaned closer. He didn't rush, didn't breathe heavy or make it feel like something urgent. It was quiet, intentional, like he wanted me to feel every second of it. His face was close now, inches. I could smell the faint scent of lake water and cedar from his jacket. I could feel the warmth of him on my cheek. His eyes locked with mine, not blinking. Then he stopped, right there, so close I could feel his breath. He didn't touch me. He didn't speak, until he did. "Tell me to stop," he said. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. He meant it. He meant every word. My heart thudded once, loud in my ears. My throat felt tight. My palms were cold, but the back of my neck burned. And yet, somehow my voice came out clear. "I don't want you to." That was all it took. He closed the distance. Not fast, not desperate, just sure. His lips met mine with a tenderness I didn't expect. Not soft out of fear, but out of care. Like he didn't want to break anything. Not me, not the moment. Kissed him back. There was no hesitation in me anymore. His hand found my jaw, steady but gentle, anchoring me like he'd been holding this inside for far too long. The kiss deepened just slightly, not rushed, not messy. Felt earned. Like every unspoken thing between us had led to this exact second. When we finally parted, we didn't speak right away. We just stayed there, faces still close, eyes locked. His thumb brushed the edge of my cheek like he was trying to memorize it. "I didn't plan for this," he said, his voice low. "I know," I whispered. "Me neither." He leaned back, just enough to see me more clearly. "I don't want to mess you up," he said. "I'm older. Ryan's dad. This is complicated." I nodded. "Yeah, it is." He laughed once under his breath, like he wasn't sure if it was funny or tragic. Maybe both. But I added, "It's also real." That silenced him again. And I meant it. Whatever this was, whatever name it didn't have yet, it wasn't pretend. He reached over and rested his hand lightly on my knee. Stayed there, warm and steady. The wind picked up outside, rustling the leaves like applause. "I don't know where this goes," he said. "Me neither," I replied. We sat there in that gravel turnout for a long time, watching the sun sink behind the hills, our shoulders close, the engine off, the truck cooling around us. Eventually, he reached for the keys and started the ignition again. Neither of us said we should go, but we both knew we'd be back here. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. The road stretched ahead of us like a ribbon unraveling into dusk. We didn't speak much as Mr. Carter pulled the truck gently away from the Overlook. The air between us had changed. Still quiet, still charged, but softer now. Like something had been acknowledged that didn't need to be explained. It just was. We didn't go straight to my place. Neither of us said why. We didn't need to. Instead, he pulled into a small clearing just off a wooded side road. The trees were thick and tall here, the kind that wrapped you in shadows and made the world outside feel far away. The last light of day filtered through the canopy, golden and slow. He killed the engine but didn't move. Neither did I. I sat with my hands in my lap, feeling the thrum of my own pulse behind my ribs. "I keep waiting for this to feel wrong," I said, staring ahead. He turned to me. "Does it?" I looked at him. His expression was open, maybe even vulnerable. The kind of look you don't give just anyone. The kind that risks something. "No," I said. "That's what scares me." His hand moved slowly, deliberately, across the console. Fingers brushing mine, not grasping, just resting there. The warmth of his touch was almost startling in its simplicity. We sat like that for a while, hand to hand. No words. Eventually he said, "I've felt alone for a long time, Jesse." The way he said my name, it was low, almost reverent. I looked at him, eyes meeting in the half-light. He went on, "Not just in relationships. In everything. In how I move through the world. In who I am when no one's watching." I didn't speak. I just let him. "You're the first person in a long time who doesn't make me feel like I have to put on a face," he said. "Like I don't have to be the dad or the neighbor or the guy who always has the answers." He turned his hand over so our palms touched. "You make me feel seen." The words landed inside me like something I'd been waiting to hear my whole life. From anyone. And suddenly, I wanted to say something too. Something true. "I didn't know what I was missing," I said. "Until you looked at me like that." His eyes softened. I leaned toward him. Not in a rush, not hungry, just drawn. Our lips met again. Slower this time. Warmer. There was no hurry in it. No pressure to make it anything other than what it was. Two people finding something they didn't know they were allowed to want. He pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against mine. There was something so grounding about the way he touched me. Not possessive, not timid, just present. We climbed into the back seat together, not in a scramble or some clumsy tangle of limbs. It was deliberate, quiet, like we were moving through something sacred. He lay on his side facing me, one hand tucked under his head, the other tracing gentle patterns on my arm. I mirrored him, watching his face in the growing dark. No one had ever looked at me like that before. Like I wasn't just attractive. Like I mattered. Like I belonged there. We didn't talk for a while. The only sound was the breeze stirring the leaves outside and the faint settling of the truck's metal as it cooled. Eventually, I broke the silence. "Is this crazy?" He smiled just slightly. "Probably." I laughed under my breath. "I keep thinking Ryan would kill us if he knew." He didn't laugh. Just said, "I'm not thinking about Ryan right now." "Me neither." I shifted closer. Our legs tangled lightly. His thumb brushed the curve of my cheek, like he was trying to remember every line of my face. There was something unspoken in the way he touched me. Something that said, "I don't get moments like this, and I'm afraid of what it means that I want more of them." I rested my hand on his chest, felt the slow, steady rhythm of his heart beneath my palm. "You okay?" I asked softly. He nodded. "Yeah." Better than okay. His fingers found mine again, threading them together. I didn't think I'd ever get to feel this again, he said. Not with someone who actually saw me. I looked up at him, our faces just inches apart. You deserve to be seen, I whispered. His eyes searched mine for something, fear, maybe, regret. But all he found was the same thing he was offering. Honesty. We didn't kiss again. We didn't need to. It was all there, in the silence, in the shared breath, in the way we didn't look away. Eventually, I laid my head against his shoulder. He shifted slightly to make space, pulling me closer like it was the most natural thing in the world. We stayed like that for a long time. Nothing urgent. Nothing planned. Just warmth. Just connection. Just this. The drive back was quiet, but not the kind of silence that begged to be filled. This one felt like peace, like we had said everything we needed to say without actually saying it. The windows were rolled down halfway, and the night air curled around us, cool against my skin, carrying the scent of pine and summer grass. I watched the trees blur past in the dark and listened to the steady hum of the tires on the road. Mr. Carter, Dean, I finally let myself think his name, kept his eyes forward, one hand resting lightly on the wheel. I wanted to reach for him again, to hold that hand like I had in the back seat just an hour ago. But I didn't. Not here. Not yet. Still, I felt him. Even in the quiet, even with space between us, I felt him. When we pulled up outside my apartment, the porch light flicked on automatically. I turned to him, hesitating. Thanks, I said. The word felt too small, but it was all I could manage. He nodded. Anytime. I reached for the door handle but paused. Will I see you again? I asked. His eyes met mine then.
No hesitaste.
You already know the answer. I smiled. Small. Certain. And then I stepped out into the night. A week passed. Life resumed its regular rhythm. Classes, laundry, coffee runs, the occasional text from Ryan about some drama at football camp. I responded to those with short, neutral replies. I wasn't ready to talk about anything that had changed, because everything had changed. I kept thinking about that afternoon at the lake, about the way Dean looked at me, not as a placeholder, not as someone temporary, but as someone he'd waited for without realizing it. I checked my phone more than I wanted to admit. No messages, no calls. And then, Friday morning, just as I was heading out the door, my screen lit up. Dean, cabin this weekend? My heart stuttered in the best way. I stood there on my porch, the sun rising behind me, the wind warm and familiar. I typed back, I'll bring coffee. By the time I packed my bag and started walking to the pickup point, something had settled inside me. Calm certainty. This wasn't normal. We both knew that. We didn't have labels. We didn't talk about what this meant or where it was going. But we showed up. We chose each other, even when it didn't make sense, even when no one else would understand. And maybe, in a world full of noise and pressure and people pretending to be okay, that was enough. I used to think love had to come with grand gestures, perfect timing, a clean story you could tell your friends. But what I had with Dean didn't fit into that box. It started with a canceled bus and a quiet truck ride. It turned into a dockside confession and a shared silence that meant more than words ever could. We didn't call it love. Not out loud. Not yet. But it was. It was in the way he looked at me like I wasn't invisible. It was in the way I stopped pretending I didn't want to be seen. It was in the pause before his kiss, the permission, the care, the wait. It was in the warmth of his chest beneath my palm, steady and unshaken. It was in his message. Simple, no punctuation, just enough to say, I'm thinking of you. I want you near me again. It was in my reply. No doubt.
No hesitaste.
Just, I'll bring coffee. Because that's what you do when you've found something rare. You show up. You carry warmth. You come back. If the story stirred something in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever felt a connection that defied logic, timing, or labels? New true love stories drop every week. Hit the bell so you never miss a moment. Because sometimes, love doesn't need a name. It just needs to be real.